Welcome to AHA Talks. I'm Cheyanne Sauter, the CEO of AHA Projects, and we support change makers like you with tools and resources you need to do work in your community. Follow us on Instagram and check out our website to keep up with all the exciting things we're up to. This collection of videos will provide bite-sized learning that you can apply immediately to your work. So nonprofits are formed every day, and there are so many amazing nonprofits doing amazing work. But I've had the opportunity to work with a couple of nonprofits who were going along like everything was fine, fundraising, having their gala, and all of a sudden they realized they lost their nonprofit status with the IRS. What happened, and what do they do to fix that?
Yeah, so the first thing I'd say is it happens so often because a lot of people don't realize when they finally receive their tax exemption, they're like, we did it, we don't have to pay taxes. And immediately that equates in their mind to, we don't have to do any reporting to the IRS, which is the easiest way to have your tax exempt status revoked. That is a failure to file your tax returns for a set period of time. And the automatic revocation occurs when you fail to file 3 tax returns with the nonprofit. And it happens, and sometimes people don't even know that it's happening. It just happens automatically. And then you get a letter saying, hey, your tax exemption has been revoked, and then panic. Like, what do we do? How do we fix this? That can be pretty scary when you've worked so hard to please your donors and do the good things that the organization does, and suddenly the donors are not receiving their tax exemption.
It's an absolute panic. As an executive director, receiving a letter in the mail from the IRS, immediate stomach drop, immediate cold sweat. You don't know what's in there. And oftentimes it's just a notice saying your extension to file your taxes has been approved. It doesn't always have to be bad. But I think as an executive director, because my focus is on the services that we're providing, it's not on the compliance side of things. So when I received that revocation letter from the IRS, what should I do? What's my recourse? Is there a 1-800-IRS help me line? What should I do as an executive director?
Yeah, so the very first thing to keep in mind is your sole goal is to correct the issue. So if it's for failure to file a tax return, immediately contact your tax professional to get things rolling on the tax side, because the way that you're going to correct it with the IRS is to get caught up in your tax filings. Revocation can occur, but it is easier to fix. And when you go through that process, it's easier to fix. Really, you have to have your tax returns filed before you can even fix it. So start working on filing the tax return that's amiss. Keep in mind that days matter. Penalties for failure to file a tax return can run per day, which is awfully expensive. And if you immediately work on correcting the issue, there's an opportunity for abatement with the IRS for things that are circumstances that are basically non-fraudulent. If someone just didn't know that they were supposed to file it, or they thought they filed it and it wasn't accepted, or something like that happened. So the very first step I would say is work on correcting the issue, and then deal with the consequences of that notice after you start working on correcting it.
So it's 2026 now. I received the letter. That means I haven't filed 2025, 2024, or 2023. And of course, it does matter if you've decided to have your fiscal year start January to December or July to June the following year, or there's also September to August, some people do, who are part of school systems. So that means you need to go back, run your financials, talk to a bookkeeper or a CPA to make sure that they're filing your tax return. Those files are, what is the tax return called for a nonprofit, and what are the different variations?
Form 990, so all tax-exempt organizations should file a Form 990. There's different forms that you have to file depending on the size of your organization and other things, but mostly the size. There is a 990 EZ, which is a shorter form for your tax return. And then there's the 990N, which is called a postcard, which is basically a very, very simple few line item reporting requirement, although very important because this is your tax return, but they refer to it as a postcard because it's so simple. So 990N postcard, the 990EZ, and then you have the regular 990, which is a full form tax return that you use with larger organizations. So there's options, and filing your tax return for smaller organizations, the IRS does make it very simple by having these shorter, more simple forms for these smaller organizations.
Let's say I've compiled all the documentation, I've had the CPA or bookkeeper submit the 990, or I've done it myself because it's a 990N, meaning it could be a lot easier for me to fill out as a lay human being. I sent it in. How do I know what penalties I may have incurred? Who's telling me that I owe money to the IRS, and how do I find out?
So there is a number that you can call. I don't have it on hand, but there is a number, and the IRS can be really helpful in these circumstances in understanding what your exposure is. There will be penalties and interests accruing. Even when you're trying to work on it, they will be accruing those penalties and interests. But if you work on correcting the issue and you start resolving it, and then you do ultimately resolve it with the IRS, there is an opportunity for abatement with the IRS, which basically that means writing off the penalties and associated interest that has accrued as a result of that failure to file. And the IRS is pretty generous if you can explain your circumstances. And basically, if it doesn't look fraudulent, they're very generous in trying to get you back in good standing with the IRS. And that abatement is really an important piece of that.
I've had to write an abatement letter for an organization that I started working for that was behind on their taxes by 1 year only. And we were accruing penalties. How my approach to the abatement letter was just as honest as possible, saying that the previous executive director had fallen ill, had stepped away, nobody was managing the books, and we did receive the abatement. So how do you advise your client on how to write these letters, and how honest or how gushy should we be in these letters? It's the IRS. It's not like surprise it.
It is definitely the IRS, but the IRS understands that nonprofits are generally operated by individuals that might not know that they needed a tax return. So my opinion is tell the truth, but tell the whole story, even the gushy stuff, even the tragic stuff, because that comes into play in what the reasonings were and the circumstances of the non-filing was. So I think the gushier the better. Tell your story, because I do think that the abatements are pretty likely to come through if there's a good reason.
And then what is the process? Once I've sent the abatement letter in, what do you feel like the timeline is these days for having the IRS respond?
Remember that we're post-COVID and the IRS is losing a lot of positions. So I do see that timeframes are slowing down at the IRS. I have not personally done an abatement request recently, so it's hard to put a set time frame on that, but they tend to be longer when it's tax season or when they're losing their employees to budget cuts and things like that. So I wouldn't expect anything with the IRS to be fast because it is a process, but you can call and check on submissions to the IRS, especially if you send them into the IRS and you notate the timeframes that you sent them in. Usually, if you're an authorized person for that entity, you should be able to call and find out what's happening with it. So I would just keep following up on it.
That's great. That's really great advice. So let's say I'm 3 years behind. I don't know that I have a revocation. I've let it lapse and it's 5-6 years. I haven't touched the organization. Maybe something changed in my personal life where I needed to step away from this idea and this passion project, but I want to revive it year 6, year 7. Would you advise someone to go through the reversal on the being revoked, go through the abatement process, and at what point should I maybe just think about starting over?
If truly there has not been a lot of activity, because really the IRS is most concerned with accurate reporting. If it's been 7 years and really it never took off, you never did a bunch of fundraising, and it's just been kind of parked there, I would say it's going to be harder to revive than probably starting over. But again, that depends on what the activities were in the years where it was operational. And so my advice would really depend on what occurred during those years. If truly it was, hey, you started it, you formed the entity, you got your tax exemption, and then life got busy and you never really did anything with it, it's probably going to be beneficial to just start over. But if you conducted activities for 3 full years and it was significant activities and then it was parked there, I'd say it would really depend on how much the activities, and my advice would just be really fact and circumstance based on that issue. But if really it was, hey, I started it but I didn't do anything with it, probably starting over is going to be a much more reasonable solution.
And you mentioned something interesting. If there's activity in that 3 years, 3 or 5 years where you're revoked, you're raising money actively, you're doing activities actively, you're engaging the community. Let's say you have $15,000 sitting in a bank account. That money doesn't belong to a person. That belongs to the entity, the nonprofit entity. So who comes into play for that $15,000? Is that the IRS, the state, your board of directors? Who's responsible for that?
So if you have a board of directors, the board of directors are required to comply with the law and meet their fiduciary duties. And one of the fiduciary duties is to act in accordance with the laws. State law in Nevada dictates that if a nonprofit organization has funds that have been donated for that organization's nonprofit or tax-exempt purpose, then it can only be used for those purposes. So if it was designated for a specific purpose or if it was just operating funds for the nonprofit, Nevada state law does dictate that you need to either contribute it to a like-kind organization, so you could take those funds and contribute it to your organization that you're starting fresh, or to some other organization that does the same type of activity within your own community, or even state next door if there's not one that's too similar or doesn't do what you want it to do. So those dissolution questions are really common because there are a lot of organizations that do end up with some funding when they decide that their purpose is no longer beneficial or they're not making it work. And dissolving it and taking the funds personally is called private inurement, someone personally benefiting from the organization, completely prohibited. And so it needs to be contributed to a like-kind organization.
I talk to a lot of executive directors and they say things like, well, my organization, my cause, what I'm doing, and it's so quick to want to correct. Once you started a nonprofit, it no longer has an I in it. It belongs to the community and to the people that you're hoping to serve. And so it is the people's organization and the people's money.
And the driving force behind any nonprofit organization is that mission and purpose. So when you form the legal entity, you will state what the purpose of that organization is at the very beginning. And if it changes, it needs to be amended in your governing documents. That's where the funds are earmarked. And taking them and putting them somewhere else without either approval by the board, if it's going to another organization, or if the board is changing its purpose, it needs to be a board decision that's within the parameters of those governing documents and state and federal laws.
Let us know what other videos you want us to produce, or if we can dive deeper into any one of these topics. If we don't have the answers, we definitely know someone that does. Thank you.